to get into some things today, guys. We are getting closer, as I said at the top, to the playoffs, just under 5 weeks away. And the play-in tournament, it's already next month. Conference races are tight. Races to be seeded 7 to 10 in each conference with a shot of making the playoffs are heating up. And of the teams seeded 6 to 11 in the conference, we're going to look at that from 6 to 11 because there could be a lot of movement there. We're going to look at whose odds do you like to make or avoid the play-in tournament. Now, I'd given you guys, and we had looked at some odds via DraftKings and FanDuel that were out before the season. There aren't any current odds that I could find on odds to make the play-in tournament right now. But some of these odds are obviously interesting because of how things have played out for certain teams this season. We'll look at the Eastern Conference. Miami, they're at 27 and 25. They're plus 370. Boston, 26 and 26. You know, that's a team that Jarod would absolutely bet on. They are at plus 410. That was before the season. The Knicks, plus 600. Indiana, minus 115. Chicago was plus 155. And Toronto, plus 280. In the West, this is 6 to 11, guys. Portland, 30 and 21 at plus 110. Dallas at 29 and 22. They were at plus 260. Memphis, 26 and 23, plus 150. San Antonio, plus 310. Golden State, they are now in the 10th spot. They're at plus 115. And New Orleans, plus 100. So some interesting odds before the season. You look at a team like Boston, or you even look at a team like Miami and their odds. I think a lot of people thought Miami would be nowhere near this conversation in terms of the play-in tournament, and rightfully so. But they've slipped back. I think Bryan would say, I don't think they're going to be in the play-in tournament. I see his face already smiling right now. I'm going to start with you on the Heat before we get into some other teams. Are the Heat in any danger of being seeded anywhere from 7 through 10?
I mean, conceivably, yeah, but if I'm any of these teams, how confident am I that the Charlotte Hornets and the Atlanta Hawks are going to hold me off? You know what I mean? If not for this, win streak that we didn't see coming with Atlanta, as soon as they got Nate McMillan to be the head coach, they wouldn't be, at the 5 seed right now, which is where they are, and Charlotte's at the 4. I don't think either of those teams are going to stay out of the play-in in that way. They're both barely ahead of Miami and Boston as it is. Miami is a team I think is going to be able to avoid the play-in. Boston, I mean, you would think, but I just don't really know because they're still so very up and down, and we could pretty much say with about 20 games left in the regular season that this is who they are. So I don't really know who I expect to sort of avoid the play-in that's right there, but I think that Charlotte and or Atlanta should be dropping in there. So I would say that Miami's going to probably avoid it, and I guess I would go with Boston just based on the confidence that I don't really have on any of the other teams to rise up, because I'm looking at either Boston or probably the Knicks right after.
Boston. Let's talk about that, Jarod. We know how you feel about the C's. Do you have confidence in them rising up? I tend to agree with Bryan that you're probably going to see one of those teams, Charlotte or Atlanta, most likely Charlotte, drop just because of injuries. LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, most likely you will see them drop. I think we all would agree, and this is not just calling Bryan the resident Heat fan. I think we all would agree Miami's probably the team primed to move up here because of how they've been playing better. Do you think Boston can do that too? Can they move up as well? Or do you have trepidation, and are you going to keep the same energy that you always have for the C's?
Well, listen, man, we about a few shows into this now. This is the whole bit. I got to stick to it. Fuck the C's. Look, I will say, I did tell you all, go with the under to start the season on them.
You did.
Right?
You did.
And look where they're at. I mean, for whatever reason, there was something about them that and it's not really because I do like Jaylen Brown a lot, and Tatum's obviously very good. As much as I clown Brad Stevens, he's a good coach. But the rest of that roster, man, I just don't know. And we know what the big man situation is. They're giving Time Lord some more playing time, which is good because he's good and he's going to help them. But as far as who they are as a team, look, and this is not about crapping on Kemba, but injuries are not it's not it, right? That's not helping them do what they need to do. And it's just unfortunate. So yeah, if I'm looking at this, Miami is the team of that grouping that I'm the most confident in, just because of the institutional knowledge that they have. But look, Miami's record is also what it is. And yes, they had COVID and injuries, but every team had to deal with some level of COVID and injuries and whatever.
Utah.
Okay, except for Utah. Except for Utah. But So that Miami's who they are too. Their record is who they are. So I don't anticipate Miami going on some 10-game winning streak and then all of a sudden vaulting themselves up into the third seed. Like, no, they've shown who they are as well this season. And but if I had to pick somebody, I'd say Miami likely avoids. The rest of them, they're gonna duke it out for that play-in area.
Okay, let's look at the West, guys, because the West obviously really tight as well too. I mean, this has been a ridiculously bunched up season with everything that's gone on with COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Portland has played well for most of the season. At some point, they've been as high as 3. They're now at 6. Dallas has been coming on strong with Porzingis getting healthy. You got your boys in Memphis, Jarod, San Antonio. They've been hurt by a lot of cancellations, and now they've had a tougher schedule in the second half of the season. You can say the same for Memphis too. Golden State, New Orleans. Let's start with Golden State, guys, because we talked a lot about them in the very first episode in terms of the over-under. And I remember, Jarod, you specifically saying that you had a lot of trepidation with them and you might stay away from that over-under. Now they're 3 games under 500. They've been struggling a lot offensively, especially if Steph doesn't play. We saw him with the tailbone injury recently. Do you guys like them as a lock to make the play-in tournament? I don't think they're a lock by any strength. Can they even get up to 6 right now, or are we looking at the Golden State Warriors in the play-in tournament at best?
You have to look at how they play their games. When Steph Curry is on the floor, they are a fantastic offense, right? In terms of points per possession, they are among the best in the league. When he's off the floor, they're worse than a G League team. They are horrendous.
Damn.
And Steve Kerr said, we're not chasing wins. It's about, okay, well, when he is off the floor, you literally have nothing to work with within the way in which you like to play basketball, which is this motion offense, beautiful passing and all that. The players you have, you don't got Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, Leandro Barbosa, all these super high IQ guys that know how to pass, cut, and move and do all that beautiful ball movement. The rest of these guys don't know how to play like that. And that system ain't working for them. You got to run more pick and rolls with Steph and Dre and Steph and Wiseman and just, let Curry go nuclear, right? But if you want to win games, because the way that you're playing right now, you're not playing at a level that's going to allow you to do that. And I know that he's building for the long term, but the reality of this is this team is not a one Klay Thompson away from being a contender. Like, no, they lived in rarefied air for 5 years, going to 5 straight finals. That shit ends at some point. It ended. Now you're living like how everybody else in the NBA lives, right? This is just what life is like. And until they figure out how to get better players on the roster, this is just what it is. So no, there's no guarantee they even make the play-in tournament.
Wow, that statement that they might not even make the play-in tournament. How do you feel about them, Brian? Do you see them making the play-in tournament, or could you even see them dropping out of it and the Kings passing them or the Pelicans passing them here?
I think the only reason they might hang on is because I actually think the Spurs are probably going to fall out because their second half of not second half, but their schedule from here on out is pretty tough, and they're dealing with some stuff right now also. And, right now they're barely ahead of Golden State, but they're not ahead of them in the win column. And I think Golden State's going to be able to make up some ground there if Steph Curry is healthy the rest of the way. But, New Orleans, we have to give them a chance. They have Zion Williamson still. And say what you want, but he's actually been playing a little bit better. I still don't really like watching them as much as some other people probably do because their style's a little bit clunky. And, we've talked on here with Murph about, Stan Van Gundy probably being a mistake hire. We'll see what happens over there. But I think that New Orleans, with Zion, with Brandon Ingram, with Lonzo, should be able to get in this play-in with Golden State. I'm just not too sure. I think that they're, they have to rely on Steph Curry a lot because they don't have much else. James Wiseman's been a little more up and down than you would have liked to see in his rookie year. He's somebody that I thought was probably going to be the rookie of the year coming in. And based on the raw talent, he should have been because in Golden State, the way they play, he should be able to just kind of walk into 15-10 with the abilities that he has. And he hasn't really done that. He's also dealt with, some injury stuff and things of that nature. And he hasn't played a ton this year. But even when he's played, you're hearing reports about how confused he looks on defense, and you're seeing it in games, and Draymond's telling him he's out of position and things of that nature. And these are the kind of guys that they have to rely on. So it's going to be slow. So I think they'll hang on to that 10 spot, maybe even come up to 9 and swap with San Antonio, but it probably won't be much better than that.
Okay, so you guys don't have a lot of confidence in them moving up. Let's talk another team, Dallas. They're sitting at 7 right now. They've played better of late, although they had a horrendous loss this week to the Houston Rockets. I'm sure nobody bet on the Rockets for that. I mean, somebody did, and somebody did, and somebody's smiling somewhere. But before this season, their odds were at plus 260 to make the play-in tournament. I think a lot of people had them in as a lock for the playoffs. I think a lot of people had them probably seed as high as 5th or 4th in the conference. I still think they can be dangerous, guys, if you can trust, which you cannot, the health of Kristaps Porzingis. That is the key there, right? Do you think they're likely to get out of the play-in tournament situation and into a guaranteed playoff spot? Would you bet on them to do that? Jarod, you first.
Look, you got Luka Doncic, you always got a chance, right? I mean, that's one of the playing wise anyway this season. He's one of the 5, 6 best players in the world, at least offensively, probably top 5 for sure, right? I mean, so you have to give them a chance. It is about Porzingis though, right? How healthy is he and how well do they play defense? But they're kind of on a little bit of a roll right now, right? Luka had a slow start to the season, but they're kind of grooving right now. And there's institutional knowledge there, right? That crew's been together for a little bit now. They know how each other plays and they've got experience from going to the playoffs last year. I like them to kind of go on a little run here, and they're going to hover, though, around that 5, 6 range. They may get super hot and get up to 4, but, I mean, they're going to have to battle Denver for that. I mean, the West is loaded. Like, it's Utah ain't going anywhere, despite what Brian thinks, at least in the regular season, right? They're not – that record, they're not dropping down to 8. They are staying firmly planted at the top, and, it's going to be everybody else behind them playing catch. Phoenix, Denver, the Clippers, the Lakers, it's going to be tough to get in there, but I'd say they're going to hover around that 5, 6 mark.
Brian, before you touch on Dallas, I'd like to note that I think one of the things that makes it hard to bet in the West, Jarod kind of hit upon it just because it's so bunched and you have teams like Denver playing well, but also the Lakers in their situation with their health, and you might see them drop. So that might make Portland move up. It might make Dallas move up a spot. The Lakers, it's scary to think about this, but they might end up in the play-in tournament, or they might end up getting the 8 seed, and the Jazz, for their great regular season, may end up having to play the Lakers in the first round. And I might have to agree with Brian on this. We think if the Lakers are healthy, we know how that's going to go.
Which is a big if, right? That's a big if.
It's a big if. And we don't know what health is going to be like, right, Jarod? We have no idea. But, Brian, do you like Dallas? Do you like them to have any chance? Would you put money on them to move up? Are the Lakers a factor in that decision for you? What do you think about Dallas's chances moving up here?
This is tough because, like, with the Lakers, I could actually see them dropping into the play-in the way things are going. Saw them against Miami last night, saw them the other night against I'm forgetting who, and they just, built around Dennis Schroeder and Andre Drummond. It's different. It's very different. It's very different from LeBron.
Right.
And
it's not it.
Right. It's very different from LeBron and Anthony Davis. With Dallas, I just wish they had a little bit more. Just a little bit more, because I feel like they could actually be quite dangerous in the playoffs if they do. And if, Kristaps Porzingis is healthy. Now, let's remember, I'm going to give the Mavs credit. Last year, they probably should have beaten the Clippers in the first round. Kristaps Porzingis was ejected the first game when they were beating the Clippers in the third quarter. And then that ended up changing the tide of the game. They ended up losing by 8. They won game 2. They ended up making the series 2-2. Kristaps Porzingis had a knee injury. He didn't end up coming back after game 3. And they ended up losing 4-2 to a Clipper team who evidently didn't want to be there because we know what happened in the next round. That's to say, like, Dallas this year, it's a lot of the same guys coming back. We'll see what happens with Porzingis. Over his last 7 games, he's averaging something like 23 and 11. His rebound numbers have gotten a lot better, which is something I get on him for. He's playing better as of late. Luka Doncic is Luka Doncic. What concerns me about them is similar to what concerns me about Utah. After your top 2 guys, it's kind of, in Dallas's case, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jalen Brunson, and like the drop-off is fairly significant. So it's a team that's not quite there. It's kind of like OKC before they ended up having their breakthrough, or the Bulls before they ended up having their breakthrough with Derrick Rose before the ACL injury, certain things like that. What they don't want is to fall into that Portland or Washington Wizards trap where they're just getting into like the second round and losing every year. We'll see. I think that they might be able to avoid the play-in because Lakers might drop into it unless LeBron and or Anthony Davis, preferably both of them, come back really soon. But, Dallas has won 8 of 11, and I like what they've been doing so far. So we'll see.
We shall see with that. Last thing before we get out of these odds for the play-in tournament, do you guys like the play-in tournament? I want to explain the format for our viewers who do not understand this, because there's sometimes some confusion with this. Play-in tournament will be the team seeded 7 through 10 in East Conference. Team seeded 7 and 8 will play a game. It is a single, it's double elimination for teams seeded 7 through 8, single elimination for teams 9 and 10. 7 will play 8. The winner of that game gets the 7th seed. The loser of that game will play the winner of the 9-10 game. The loser of the 9-10 game is eliminated. The winner of that loser of either the winner of the 9-10 game and the loser of the 7-8 game will then get the 8 seed. So that's how it'll go. So anything can happen in a play-in tournament at all. Anything. Somebody can get injured. We talked about health. Somebody can get really hot in one game. So it should bring a lot of excitement. Are you guys fans of this tournament? Are you looking forward to it? And do you think it adds excitement and intrigue as we get down to the final games of the season?
I mean, it's good for the fans. I know the league likes it. It was pretty popular when we implemented it last year. The thing that I don't like about it is the idea is if you're a team and you've played well all season and you've locked in your 8th spot, but just because your conference is tough, the fact that I then have to be involved in a play-in tournament, and let's say a team like Portland, like last year, was super injured, all of a sudden Damian Lillard goes on a hot streak. Well, now he gets to beat me, and all of my work that I've done all regular season gets discounted because Lillard's been hot for 2 nights, right? Like that to me is kind of like a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it more before the season began, and now that I'm seeing the teams that might be involved, I'm kind of like, I mean, whatever. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, and I'm like, do I really want to watch Chicago versus the Celtics?
Definitely not. Nope.
You know what I mean? Like at this point, before the season, I would have been like, ooh, that's actually interesting, even though I would have thought the Celtics would have whooped their ass. Now, for all I know, Nikola Vucevic, who's going to guard Nikola Vucevic on the fucking Celtics right now? You know what I mean? But even so, it's like, do I really want to watch potentially Memphis versus San Antonio, which would be the 8-9 matchup right now? So, I mean, it is what it is. It's just a roadblock, or not a roadblock, but it's just a stopgap before we get to the actual playoffs. So, whatever.
Yep, we will be there soon enough.
Except if the Lakers are in.
Sure.
Except if the Lakers are in. If the Lakers are in, that's just shit. Popcorn ready. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's going to be Lakers Warriors,
not if
I would love.
Not if you work for the league office. If you work for the league office, you are sweating it out, hoping the Lakers somehow don't get bounced because that's disastrous.
Nah, but they're going to enjoy those ratings if LeBron is back by then, and it's going to be LeBron versus Curry in the play-in. You know what I mean? Like that's a different thing.
No doubt.
You're happy for the ratings, but you do not want the Lakers to not be in the actual playoffs. Like that's
you know what you want as a basketball fan. Now that I'm thinking about it, you want as a basketball fan, you want either that, what I just said, Lakers Warriors, or you want Lakers versus Memphis, just so that Ja Morant could just go at the Lakers in the way that he does.
Try to yam on Anthony Davis in the game.
Get like 36 points, 12 assists. Maybe Jaren Jackson Jr. is back by then, and they give the Lakers a run for their money.
Well, Jarod will give us another update in like 2 weeks, I'm sure. So yeah.
Listen, man, y'all gotta stop messing with my guy, Triple J. Cut it out.
All right.
We want to see him because we think that Memphis team could be good.
Oh yeah, we do. Listen, who you telling?